Story 1. Honestly, I only know how the game works, but I don't know anything about the players or trading situations. I smile, nod, agree with whatever they say, or ask questions that just keep them talking. Like they say, "This trade was horrible. I don't know why they did that." I say, "Who would be a better trade?" They then go off for like 15 minutes. Story 2. I just say that I've been really busy and I haven't had time to keep up with it. Then I ask them to give me a rundown of the season so far. Works like a charm. Story 3. It's never once in my life been an issue. I don't like sports. Okay, cool. Anything more difficult than this and you're just hanging out with the wrong people, man. Story 4. I am just honest. I tell them, I am not interested in sports. I do not have to fit in, and nobody has to try to like what a male stereotype likes either. Just be you. Story 5. This doesn't really apply to the question, but I think it fits in. I'm often in an opposite situation as a sports enthusiast who is typically in groups of people not interested in sports. They always try to talk about sports with me, and I'm usually not interested in talking about sports with them. I'd rather talk about something we can all contribute to. Story 6. I check the spread online, then ask them if they want to wager $20 on the game given the spread. 80% won't take it. 15% will try to lower the bet. 5% will accept. You'll get a lot less sports conversations while also having a financial interest in the ones you do have. Win-win. Story 7. I tell people I have zero interest in sports, and if, for some reason, they keep talking, I just say, I have no idea what any of that means and laugh. Story 8. I pick a sport that no one watches and pretend to be really into it. Hey dude, did you watch the Raiders game? No, I'm not really into football. I'm more of a curling fan. Do you watch curling? Isn't that like the big shuffleboard thing on ice? Oh, curling makes shuffleboard look like bocce ball. I'm pretty excited about this season because the Newfoundland Swordfish just signed Gregory Kucinich as their outside scrubby brusher, fresh out of the Canadian National Academy. He's going to be a real game changer. That kid's the next Mackenzie Bard's son. Story 9. I'm from New York, living out of state. I own a good number of Yankee hats, but I don't care about baseball at all. Whenever anyone questions why I have a team hat, but I don't follow the team, I just tell them, I'm just loyal to the soil. Most people find that an acceptable answer. If you need to pick a team to root for, just choose your home team. Story 10. Hard one here. I am a 6'3" black guy, always hated sports growing up. So, being tall, I'd get basketball comments and questions. It never stops, but I politely tell them I don't watch that stuff. My secret weapon is asking about Chicago Med or Charmed. Watching dudes get insanely pumped up and fighting over games on the court or TV, or the crazy thing where if you tell a fan that their team sucks, it usually ends in a fight of some sort. That part of being a guy I fail at. I'd rather be up and out doing something. Story 11. I hit them with, I swam in college. They immediately write me off as a godless homosexual and stop talking to me. Georgia. The South is the land of Jesus and toxic masculinity, and not liking football is the same as telling someone you worship the devil. Story 12. Can I rant for a second? I need to rant. I actually do like sports. I just hate sports fans. And there is so much blame to go around. I could blame the if you're not for my team, you're against me mentality. I could blame fantasy for taking a team game and making it about individual statistics. But mostly, I blame the uncritical nature by which sports fans digest sports news. The more informed the sports fan, the more they parrot exactly what they heard on a sports show. And it's infuriating to discuss a viewpoint with someone that sounds like they're a tape on repeat. Then, moving on to a new partner to discuss only to find they are the same tape on repeat. Story 13. I'm surprised no one brought up the technique of, did you see that ludicrous display last night? Edit. For those unfamiliar. Story 14. I do not like sports. Then what do you like? I watch shows and play video games. I also like going out with friends or family. Alright, what games have you been playing? Story 15. I find that the extent of someone's assuming that I'm as into sports as they are only goes as far as a question about what I think about a certain team or if I saw a certain game, to which I respond with something along the lines of, I really don't care enough about the sport to keep track of any of it. I definitely enjoy watching a football or baseball game if they happen to be on, and my brothers and I will occasionally watch a fight on pay-per-view or at a bar if it's a good card. And I definitely won't turn down the opportunity to go see a game live. But I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it on TV or keep track of schedules and stats and all that. But there's always something to talk about, some common interests to be found. But if all you're capable of is talking football stats and scores, then I probably won't find you interesting enough to hang around with anyway. Story 16. This is actually something I've thought about since I was a teen as someone who doesn't like sports. The answer has changed over the years. As a teen, I would wake up every morning before school and watch SportsCenter and try to remember as much as possible. I noticed at first, no matter how much I watched, I didn't actually remember much of anything, as they jumped from team versus team and player did this to the next thing so quickly. I was always excited to get to school and find some way to work this into a conversation. The funny thing was I was never truly a fan of any team, even though I claimed particular regionally close teams as mine. Just claiming to have a favorite team typically is good enough for most sports fans. Knowing around 3 players on said team goes a long way. Eventually, I learned that just watching SportsCenter for the biggest highlight is the way to go. No need to follow every sport and every team. Most sports fans only follow their own team in said sport and have no idea what the rest of the league did. I even attended sports games with my dad and pretended, as well as attending local Major League Baseball games with friends. I will say that live games of most any sport are entertaining, despite not actually truly knowing what's going on. Like, I get most all of the rules for any game I've been to, but do I know their standing in the season? Who each team's good players are? What makes those players good? Nope, none of it. This stands true as a teen on into adulthood. After high school, I joined the Army. This is where I lost any time or at least will to spend my time caring at all about attempting to seem like I follow. Typically in the service, I found if I knew of the big highlight of the week or the past few weeks, it was enough to get you by. It also allowed for the "oh nope, I didn't see that, catch me up" technique. Using this line works to this day if I should care enough to seem like a fan. In the military, I found that most people were also just trying to make it seem like they knew what was actually going on with their team or with whatever sport was in season. It being a melting pot of the country and the world exposed me to more teams and sports that I hadn't been aware of from my small part of the Midwest. After the Army, my default line to this day is, nope, I don't follow anymore. After I left the Army, I just couldn't get back into it. I will then tell them some of my preferences per military, should I care to. Most responses are favorable to this, and typically they will catch me up on their favorite team or sport or just move on altogether as they get the whole "I'm not interested" vibe. I have tried to get back into following a team or a sport in adulthood, but it always fails. I just don't have the desire to truly follow any of it. In recent years, I took up cycling and triathlon, and this changed the way I interact with sports fans. I now respond, "I don't like sports," or explain that I find them hard to follow. Honesty goes a long way as people take the hint. But now I also view it as a way to talk to people about the non-mainstream sports that I'm interested in, such as following the Ironman World Championship in Kona once a year, or following the Tour de France for the entire month of July every year, or going out to local cycling races every Thursday night, learning who the local fastest people are, learning who the local pro cyclists are and seeing how I stack up against their Strava segments. That being said, I find professional cycling extremely hard to follow and have next to no interest in following if it isn't the Tour de France. Same with Ironman, which I find easier to feign interest in as you just need to know 1 or 2 names to get by if you find a true fan. Typically, true Ironman fans know very specific people they follow and no one else. It's strange but not that different from mainstream sports, I guess. As an adult, you learn that everyone is a nerd about something, and it's all just a way to get to know the other person. Let them speak about their passion and they will like you for it. No need to feign interest. You be you and let everyone else worry about their own. In summary, I learned to not care. Also, sorry about the ramble and thank you for the chance to talk about this. It's 4:48 a.m. and now I go back to sleep. Story 17. As a very big sports fan, I've never had a conversation where I was offended or turned off by someone who isn't interested in sports. Oh, you don't like sports? So how's work? Kids? Wife? Video games? Story 18. Honestly, I just lie. I follow the sports headlines and can feign reasonable knowledge about most popular sports. I don't usually bother, but if I know the topic may arise, I'll brush up on the latest headlines. Story 19. My cousin's husband came for Thanksgiving, and while watching the Sunday night game, he legitimately didn't know the rules to the game. So rather than criticize him, I explained every question he had for a good 10 minutes. He's way too busy to sit down and watch any sports. But the company he runs has perks for every Orlando professional team event, and he just gives out tickets to his employees or family. Story 20. Never tried to fit in. I make obviously dumb comments about sports, and they'll either ignore me and keep talking sports or change the subject. Always worked for me. Story 21. I know what's going on. Plus, I enjoyed playing sports, so I'm not ignorant. But I ask them questions about the plays and players they like, and I show interest. Basically, I treat them like the women who like shoes, celebrity gossip, or sports. I make them feel listened to and try to let them enjoy their time. Just be a friend. Story 22. I live in Texas, so football comes up a lot in general conversations. I just let them talk. Sooner or later, someone says something that I know about or that I can ask about. People usually like to show off their knowledge, so asking a question or two now and then usually makes them happy. If people ask me what sports I like, I generally tell them that I'm not into sports. I'm not self-conscious about it, so they usually switch the topic or ask me what I'm interested in. I can almost always find some common area of interest with someone else. Story 23. Start talking about drag racing. Fight awkward fire with awkward fire. An old guy I know started talking about some team not making it into the playoffs or something like that the other day. I don't even know what sport he was talking about. Still, I just nod along like, oh man, that's crazy. Story 24. I tell them I am not into sports but still ask questions and try to appear interested. Like someone else commented, people love to talk about stuff they care about. Sports people just seem to be happy to get to talk to someone actively listening and asking follow-up questions. Story 25. Just tell them you don't like sports and move the conversation on. Surprisingly enough, we sports guys actually have other interests. If they refuse to move on, can't move on, or are being unreasonable about it, then they clearly aren't someone worth talking to. Story 26. Most people are cool with it, and usually I can find other common ground. Not everyone is going to be interested in all of my hobbies, so I can endure a little bit of theirs from time to time as well, and both of us can poke fun at each other's hobbies without getting nasty. Story 27. I don't. I straight up just wait for the topic of conversation to change or find a way to escape the conversation. If I am asked, I say I am not much of a sports person, but I root for the team my mom likes. Story 28. Ask questions. Just because I'm not interested in something personally doesn't mean I'm not interested in another person's interest in it. I'm not interested in the craft of blacksmithing, but if I met a guy super into it, I'd ask. Story 29. I just tell them straight up that I could not care less about sports. Sometimes it causes me to be excluded from certain conversations, but I have come to accept it. I do not see sports as more important than any other hobby. Story 30. I don't. Any guy who was deeply invested in sports or even had a small interest in it immediately knew I had a distaste for sports, as quickly as I knew they had a love for them, and we would pretty much politely agree to never acknowledge each other's existence unless necessary. That's worked out pretty well so far. Story 31. Generally, those are not people I would hang out with. If they do talk about television sports watching, I just stay silent until the subject changes because I have no knowledge or interest in things like that. Story 32. This question could have been asked by me. I loathe the focus on sports in Australia and the more recent obsession with gambling, particularly its normalization when tied to any sort of competition. I've personally seen numerous lives damaged as a direct result of these two scourges on society. Reading responses with keen interest. My own answer. I try to look for mates interested in music and bands, Maybe gaming. If I'm locked into a social situation surrounded by sports and gambling fans, I feign interest and bail out at the earliest opportunity unless I locate others of like mind to me. Story 33. It's the exact same as those people who go off on their thoughts about the new Marvel movie or how it didn't stay true to the comic book. You just kind of smile and nod along because it's endearing when someone cares so much about something with literally no use, value, or purpose. Story 34. I don't try to fit in. I've found that most people who enjoy professional sports also have a personality that doesn't mesh with mine very well. If the subject comes up, I just let them know that I don't like sports, and the interaction usually ends. Story 35. I do the research on the spot. I have various apps like the National Hockey League and football. If someone wants to talk about it, I literally pull out my phone and look at the standings and whatnot and bluff my way along.